Hello once again. So I hope you are doing well and I hope you are enjoying the data science series. So in this next episode of our data science tutorials, now we are going to read real life data and you are going to compare the population growth of various countries. So the data set that I am going to use, I'll leave the link in the description so that you can always follow along. So the data is on my GitHub. You'll be able to get it. So I'm going to retrieve the data from my GitHub to my notebook using the URL retrieve library, and then we will be able to perform some operations on the data. So from URL library.request we import URL retrieve method, and then we have the data frame. We paste the link there, so I'll copy the link from my GitHub. So this is the data we are going to visualize. You can see it's really large, a bunch of countries with their population at different years. So I'll copy the link there, and then I'll be able to paste it as a variable. So data frame equals to the link leading to that data there, and then we retrieve it using the URL retrieve function that we imported from URL library.request. So URL retrieve is a function that takes two parameters, that is the data frame or the name of the variable and the file we want to read. So name of the variable is data frame df, and the file we are reading, we pass it as a string, that is countries.csv. So there is an issue there, URL retrieve wrongly spelled, so let's correct it. So after running the cell, we'll be able to retrieve the data, and from there to put there, it indicates that we already have the data with us, imported it to our notebook. So what we are going to do next is now to read the data using Python Pandas. So import Pandas as PD. So import Pandas as PD. So as we said, Pandas is a Python library for data science. So let's use PD now to read the file, the data frame. So PD dot read CSV. First, let's load the data. So we are reading the data using Pandas, and we are reading a .csv file. So read CSV, and we pass in the data frame that we have. So let's call the data frame, and we display it. We see if we really imported it. So we can check the type of the data frame. And then now we are reading the data, so country data. So if we run the cell, we should be able to display the data there. So you can see the same data that we get as the output in our notebook is the same file that we were able to see. So you can see now we have 1704 views, four rows, that is, and columns really displayed 3 columns, 1704 rows and 3 columns. So that means we already loaded the data. So what we are going to do next now is to visualize the data using Pandas and plot libraries in Python. So we are going to compare the population growth in two countries, that is Zimbabwe and Angola, over a period of years or time. So let's have a variable called Zimbabwe, and we read the data that we have under Zimbabwe, and then we'll do the same with Angola. So Zimbabwe is equals to country data, and then country data dot country is equals to Zimbabwe. So that cell basically means that we are reading the population growth in Zimbabwe. We are displaying the data specifically for Zimbabwe, and then we do the same with the Angola. So we just copy the code, we paste, and we replace Zimbabwe with Angola. So let's check Angola. So there we have it. So we'll copy it there, and then we have it there. So we are reading Zimbabwe data in Zimbabwe and the data in Angola there, and then we are going to plot some graph to compare the population growth in the two countries. So this is basically what we meant by data visualization. It's not that difficult, it's really easy as much as you are able to read a huge bunch of data really quick using Python. So Zimbabwe, let's read the data for Zimbabwe there. So as you can see, when we call Zimbabwe, now we are displaying the data. So the country is Zimbabwe all along, and we have the population for Zimbabwe. Now when we have the one for Angola, we will also be able to view the data. So let's view the data for Angola. So when we call Angola there, we'll be able to display the data specifically for Angola. As you can see there, we are able to display the data for Angola and the data for Zimbabwe. So next thing we have to do now is to compare now the data and plot a graph for the two countries. So let's add some cells. So let's use plot. So we first of all we must import the Matlotlib library in Python. Without importing it, we cannot plot anything. Remember, always import necessary libraries before you execute a set of code that will demand the use of that specific library. Always, you cannot execute any code without importing the library. So whatever we are doing here is just writing the code, but we know really well that if you don't import the necessary libraries, you will not be able to run the cell. So let's compare Zimbabwe. So if you are not following along this, you'll have to go through our first course in Matplot library and data visualization. You have to go through that first, and then you follow along with this one, because the first one has the basics and this one is for the advanced. So we are plotting the population in Zimbabwe against the population in Angola. And the main reason why we are dividing it by 1,000,000 is because the population is really huge, and we can't have huge values in our graph. So we copy the same and we do it with the Angola. Because the code looks the same, what we do is just to replace the word Zimbabwe there with Angola. So let's have the necessary. Let's have the legend text, the Y label, X label, and the title text in our plot. Then we compile the code once. These are really basics. The code looks the same, it doesn't change. What we did in the previous video is what we are really doing here. The difference is just the data, but the logic is the same. So we are having the Y label, X label, and then we'll show the plot, of course, using the show function. So let's import the Matlotlib library so that we be able to execute the cell. As I said earlier, you must always import the necessary modules for you to run a set of code that require the specified module. Because if you just write a line of code without importing the necessary module, then the syntax is basically wrong, because the Python don't understand what you are trying to do there. So after importing that, so let's run the cell. Now we can execute our graph there. We can execute the cell there so that we have the graph. So you can see now we have the population against here for the two graphs, and you can see the legend text. We have the Zimbabwe and the Angola there. So this now we are really visualizing the data using Pandas and Matlotlib library. So I hope that you are enjoying this series. So that really marks the end of this video. So make sure we are posting daily videos on data science, data visualization, economics. So make sure you follow along, and you subscribe, and you turn on the notification so that you really get notified anytime we post here. So before that, let's compare the population for other two countries, and then we wind it up. So we'll compare the one for Argentina and Germany. We see the plot, and then it will mark the end. So we just copy pasted the code because the code is the same. So what we are replacing there is just the values. So instead of Zimbabwe, we are comparing Argentina against Germany. So Germany, there we have it over there. So let's just copy the name, and then we replace it with the one for Angola. Just copy paste, copy, because the code is the same, we can't write it again. So we have to define the countries first. You can't just copy paste there without defining it. So we must define them first as a variable. So you can see the line we have there means that we didn't define them. So let's have a code there. So we'll just copy the code the same way we wrote it. So it's just the same. So Argentina there. and then Germany. So you must first define them. Which values are you comparing? You are not comparing, you are comparing, yes, Argentina, but the values for Argentina. That's why you must tell Python first that we are reading the data, the country data for Argentina and the one for Germany. You compile and then you will be able now to run it perfectly down there. So you can see now we have the graph for, so let's Germany and Argentina. So let's change the legend text there, we forgot, but you can see how now it really works. So it's really simple once you grasp the concept. So let's change the legend text. And then we recompile. So I hope you understand and you are understanding the flow. So that's really the end of this video. So next we'll be analyzing some complex data. So make sure you get notified, you subscribe, and you like this so that we get motivated to post on daily basis. So first let's execute our last cell there. So let's print some string, and the code is really instructing us there to follow some instruction to do something. So print, subscribe, like, and turn on the notification. So we execute the cell, and that really marks the end of this video. So happy coding. Make sure at the end of it all you have the data science concept. Thank you.